Were you concerned that this child could do something? Well, yes. What did you say to the parents? What actions did you take? What did she say to him at home that night? What did Dad say to him at home that night? But again, let's go back to the next day, the day of the shooting on the 30th. The question still becomes, if this kid was such a threat and they're so worried, and again, the parents left without doing anything, what did the school do? Did they search his backpack? Did they go to his locker?
Okay, the second witness on Monday was Oxford High School's counselor.
When would have been the first time you interacted with Jennifer Crumbley's son?
To my memory, the first time would have been in the fall of the 2021 school year.
Okay, so what purpose would you have interacted with him at? You would have been a freshman at the high school?
Well, I do know that there have been things I interacted with him as a freshman, but I don't have memory of those.
So in the defendant's son's freshman year, that's the fall of 2020 into early parts of 21, do you have any recollection of interacting with him?
I don't.
Okay. Now, if I showed you an email, would it refresh your recollection if you met with him in the spring of 2021?
I have seen this email. I don't have memory of the meeting, but it's been documented.
Okay. Mr. Hopkins, I'm going to direct you to the screen right in front of you. This is Exhibit 155. Portions obviously are redacted. This is a copy of an email. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. It's sent from a staff member of Oxford High School?
Mm-hmm.
You have to say yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, please, it was addressed to you May 13, 2021, 1:46 p.m.?
That is correct.
Okay. What does the email say?
It's, hi, when you get a chance, can you call redacted down and see how he's doing? He's failing my class and tries to sleep all the time in class.
Okay, so this was in reference to the defendant's son?
That is correct.
And what was your response?
It says, I'll catch him before the end of the day.
Okay. Now, do you recall having a conversation with the defendant's son in May of 2021?
I do not recall this meeting.
September the 8th, 2021, 8:23 a.m. This is an email from a different teacher to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you read us, please, what the email says?
Hi, Sean. Could you please touch base with student? In his autobiography poem, he said he feels terrible and that his family is a mistake. Unusual responses for sure.
Okay. Did you respond to that email?
I believe I did.
Okay, so this is your response, September the 8th, 2021, 9:15 a.m. What is your response?
Thanks for the heads up. I'm in senior meetings throughout the day, but we'll try and catch up with him.
Okay. Now, do you recall that interaction with the defendant's son?
In this case, I did not have a direct interaction with the defendant's son. I talked with the teacher.
Okay, and tell us about that, please.
I had a conversation with the teacher, and she explained to me a little bit more context of what had gone on. She explained that he was
Your
joking.
Honor, I would object to the hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of the matter, sir, the judge, just to offer what he did next and why.
Okay, so what did you do next?
So I had a conversation with the teacher who gave me greater context of what was going on within this. And she stated that he was actually...
Your Honor, I would object
I don't think it was clear to him.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Based on your conversation with the teacher, what did you do next?
Did you...
I did not have a meeting. I did not have a meeting with the student at this time.
And did you send an email to either the defendant or her husband, or a phone call to either the defendant or her husband?
I did not.
Okay. That's all, sir. Now, in Oxford High School, are grades posted so parents can follow along?
They are.
Okay. And what system is that?
That is through a system called Power School.
Okay.
They are given live updates through that system.
And our parents also provided emailed updates to Power School.
I believe that they can get notifications through the Power School system.
And that's sent to email?
I'm not sure.
If you know, that's all right. All right. Now, this was September the 8th, 2021. I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 157. Now, this is November the 10th, 2021 at 2:45 p.m. This is an email to you. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you tell us what this says, please?
Student is having a rough time right now. He might need to speak with you.
Okay. And then your response at 4:44 p.m. on November the 10th, 2021 was what?
I'm sorry, I was in a meeting through the end of the day. I'll catch up with him.
Okay. And did you catch up with him?
I did the following day.
Okay. Tell us about that, please.
I had a quick meeting in the hallway on his way to class. and just let him know that if he needed somebody to talk to, that I could be there for him.
Okay. Now, did you contact either that student's mother or father at that point?
I did not.
Okay. Did you send an email?
No.
And why not?
Because it was something that was very typical. I didn't have any information on the student other than he was sad, which to me is a pretty common thing and a normal thing. And I just wanted to be able to offer a bridge that if that student wanted to talk.
Hoopen gave some very telling information about the steps that the school took in order to get a hold of Jennifer, assess the situation with Ethan. Couple of points on this. His email to the administrator was at 9:32 a.m. when the drawings were sent to him. And he chose to go and get Ethan out of class. He said that it would look better if he did it rather than another teacher because he goes in there quite often and pulls kids out and talks to them.
Now, the next time you had any interaction with the defendant's son was November the 29th, 2021. Would that be right?
Yes.
Sir, this is an email to you that eventually was forwarded. Is that correct?
This email was eventually forwarded to me fairly quickly after it was sent to the two on this email.
Okay, so this is Monday, November 29th, 9:32 a.m. Can you read us, please, what the email says?
I have a student during first hour today, defendant's son, who is on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of first hour today as I was walking around the room passing out their essays. I didn't get a chance to investigate it a bit further since it was the end of the hour. Now that he's on my radar, I'm also noticing some of his previous work that he's completed from earlier in the year leans a bit toward the violent side. I can bring these things later today during my 5th hour prep if you would like them.
Okay, so this was 9:32 a.m., and you weren't on the initial email, but it was forwarded to you.
It was forwarded to me.
Okay, and tell us what happened next, please.
At this point, I received a phone call from Pam Fine, who was on the original email, asking if I would be able to come to her office. She was planning to call down the student and meet to discuss the contents of this email.
Now, in the realm of either a school counselor or someone who's in discipline of students, there are certain levels of escalation when it comes to contacting a student and or a parent. Would that be right?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay. So there's a check-in.
Your Honor, I would ask that the witness answer the questions and avoid the leading questions.
Please.
I would agree. Okay, so earlier you testified that you had just met with the student's teacher in September of 2021.
Yes.
Okay, and you felt that was sufficient at that point?
Yes, because I was able to gain more context.
Okay. November the 10th of 2000, well, actually, you met with him November the 11th, 2021. You took the next step to meet with him.
Yes.
Okay. And now a decision was made, you just testified that, to actually bring the student into the office.
That decision was made. I was not the one who made that decision.
Sure. But as far as you're concerned in your role, what are the levels of escalation to contact either a parent or somebody else?
It depends on the situation. If it's a discipline issue, I'd be contacting a dean or a principal. And then they would be the ones leading the meeting from there. If it's a social emotional issue, or if I feel the student is at risk of harm to themselves, I would be contacting a parent in that case.
Okay. So you said it was Pam Fine who was on that initial email, and what was her role at Oxford High School?
She was a restorative practices coordinator at that time.
So tell me what happened after you received that phone call.
I walked to Pam Fine's office, and the student had been called down and then walked into her office.
Okay, the student being the defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that meeting.
It was fairly brief. I was there as student support throughout the meeting, not to have direct conversation about the content of the meeting, but it was really a chance to get an idea of what he was looking at and why.
Okay. When you said you were there for the standpoint of student support, what does that mean?
Well, when a student is facing a potential discipline issue, it's fairly common to call a counselor in, as we are not the ones issuing the discipline in that case, but we can be a person there who's in the corner for the student.
So is that intentional to keep the discipline separate from the counselor?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because the counselor is not a role of disciplinarian, the counselor is a role of student support.
So your focus then would be on the mental health and well-being of the student, not if the school rule was violated.
That is correct.
But you said the meeting was fairly short.
It was less than 10 minutes.
Okay. Was the decision made to take the next step to contact a parent?
There was a phone call to the parent after the meeting.
Okay. Now, do you know how that decision was made and why?
I do not know how that decision was made or why.
Okay. Were you there for that phone call?
I was.
And was it a voicemail?
It was a voicemail.
Okay. And who made it? You or Ms. Fine?
Ms. Fine is the one who made the phone call.
Now, when was the next time you had any interaction? Well, first we'll go through the rest of 158 here. It'll be on your screen.
Okay.
This is when it was the email forwarded to you at 9:34. Can you read this email, please?
I sent the following email to Nick and Pam. I wanted to make you aware as well. I'm not sure if you had any contact with this student.
Okay. Now, who's Nick?
Nick was a dean of students at Oxford High School at the time.
Okay. And 9:36 a.m. You responded to the email. What did you write?
Thanks, Jacqueline. I'll be touching base with him as well.
Okay, thank you. Now, when is the next time that you had contact with the defendant's son?
It would have been the following morning of November 30th.
This is also an email. This is Tuesday, November 30th, 2021 at 8:05 a.m. And you were on this initial email, correct?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell us what the email says, please?
I know Jackie emailed you guys yesterday with some concerns about student in our first hour class. Today he is watching videos on his phone of a guy gunning down people. It looks like it's a movie scene and not security footage / a real event, but definitely still concerning when taking into account some of his other behaviors.
Okay, so this email was sent at 8:05 a.m. the morning of the shooting. What
Yes.
time did you receive it?
Well, I received it at 8:05. I believe I responded and saw it about 30 minutes later.
I'm sorry. What was your reaction when you read the email?
My first reaction was, here we go again, of another conversation of you have to follow school rules, you have to be able to make decisions that aren't going to be detrimental to your time in class.
Subsequently, you met with that student, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but before you did you receive another email regarding him?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, well, did you receive another email regarding the defendant's son that day?
I did, but it was, what happened was a math teacher showed a picture to our dean of students, Nikki.
Okay, so I'm going to show you 160, what's been admitted.
Okay.
This is from a teacher to you and Mr. Ejak, who references the dean of students.
Yes.
This was sent 9:32 a.m., and this was a photograph of a drawing by the defendant's son.
Yes, this was sent after I already had defendant's son in my office.
Okay.
I went through the email I received with him
With
from
who? The
Allison.
defendant's son?
Yes.
Okay.
The email from Allison Karpinski, and then sought clarification on that email. And then after receiving the clarification from the student on that email, I then looked over the paper with the defendant's son.
Okay, and what was your thought when you saw this paper, Exhibit 123?
My first thought was I wanted to get from him what he was doing. His initial response was that it was a video game, that he liked drawing for video games and liked being able to create in that way. So I let him describe it in that way at first, and then I asked him to talk about some of the words that he had written down.
Okay. By this
because
point,
those stuck out to me.
so by this point, had you seen the original drawing?
No,
Okay. So the words you were asking to explain were on this sheet here, 123.
that is correct.
Okay. So what words in particular stood out to you?
I noticed the words of "I love my life so much," "the thoughts won't stop." I could make out "help me" under the crossed out part, and "harmless act." So it made me concerned that a student may potentially be suicidal or be displaying suicidal ideation.
Okay. So I take it you didn't take the defendant's son explanation at face value.
I didn't take it at face value. I accounted for it as his description, but I wanted to make sure that I was looking at as much of a picture as I could.
Okay. So when you reviewed this drawing, and again, this is before you saw the original drawing, Did you decide then to ask more pointed questions?
I did. I really wanted to point out the words that were in the drawing because they were the easiest to see, and I wanted to get explanation for the words that wasn't just, it's a video game.
Now, when you were speaking with the defendant in your office, did he have a mask on?
He did.
Okay, did you have a mask on?
I did.
Could you tell what his demeanor was at that point?
As best as you could, without complete facial expression. You still have tone of voice, you still have pace of speech.
At this point, you never actually interacted with him without a mask, would that be right?
That is correct.
Okay. So, when you asked more pointed questions, tell us what happened next and why.
His demeanor at first was very compliant, and as I started asking about the words and asking him to describe the words, his demeanor shifted towards more of a sad demeanor.
Okay.
He started sharing some things that had gone on in his life.
Like what?
He mentioned that a family dog had died recently. He mentioned that a grandparent had passed, that he was struggling with COVID and with school through COVID. And he mentioned that he had an argument with his parents about grades the night before.
Okay. Did he tell you that a friend of his had abruptly left the state?
He did. He did mention that a friend of his had left. He didn't say the state, just wasn't attending school anymore.
Okay. Now, did you make a decision based upon your conversation with him to call Jennifer Crumbley?
I did.
You're concerned as well.
This drawing also gave me a lot of concerns of suicide. When I looked at it and I saw one body, when I looked at it and saw words that were internalized of the thoughts won't stop help me, I started becoming concerned about the student's well-being and made the decision that I needed to involve parents.
Okay. So we had talked about checking with the teacher, checking with the student, calling the student in to the office, and a phone call to the parent. Now you decided to not just call the parent, but also call them in?
I did.
Okay. Now in the range of options with a counselor dealing with a parent, this is be the highest option, would that be right?
This would definitely be up there, yes.
Okay. So when was that decision made? How long, let me ask you this, how long were you with the defendant's son before you made that decision to call his mother?
To the best of my memory, at least 20 minutes.
Okay, so in that 20-minute time span, though, you made the decision to bring her in.
I did.
Okay. Tell us how that happened.
I asked, I actually told the student what I was going to do. I said, here's where we're at, and here's what I have to do. And I let him know that in this case, I need to call your parents and get them involved because I want to make sure we get you help and support.
Okay.
I then gave student the option to choose which parent he wanted me to call. I do that quite frequently because it gives you an insight into the student a little bit of sometimes they might say, please don't call this parent. And the student's response was it would be easier to get a hold of mom. So we called mom.
After he had the first phone call with Jennifer, he sent her the email of the drawings. She made the comment after that it was difficult for her to leave work. She was over 30 minutes away, so she was hoping that James could come and talk to him.
Okay. Now, did you tell him that you had concerns of suicidal ideation before you called Jennifer Crumbley?
I do not believe that I told him that, no.
And you indicated that you had seen in the fall of 2021 other aspects of suicidal ideation in other students?
Yes,
Okay. And you said even some students had even attempted suicide?
sadly, yes.
Okay. So you've had these sort of meetings where you call a parent in before?
I have.
Okay. Tell us about that conversation between you and Jennifer Crumbley at 9:27 a.m.
I let her know that I had the student in my office and I had some concerns and was hoping that she would be able to come into the school.
Was that on your office line?
It was on my office line, yes.
Did you have the telephone to your ear, or was it speakerphone?
At that point, it was to my ear, and I believe that mom asked to speak with Ethan, or the student. So I then put it on speakerphone and allowed them to talk to each other as well.
Okay, tell me about that, please.
Mom asked the student what was going on, and he didn't really have much, just kind of.
Okay. Did you tell the defendant that you had a drawing you were going to send her, the math worksheet?
I believe I did, yes,
Okay.
and then I sent it to her,
Okay.
to her cell phone.
And did she comment on that drawing, the math worksheet, to you while she was on the phone with you?
Not to my memory.
Eventually, she had a hard time getting in touch with James, so James and her ended up both coming to the school. One thing I want to say about this drawing, guys, is I feel like it was a huge cry for help with Ethan. If you look up at the very top, in the top right-hand corner, it has his name and the date on it. This looks like something that he was going to complete and then send in to a teacher. He was going to pass this on to someone else. This wasn't, now I'm not saying for sure, but if it was something that he was definitely going to turn in, then that was a major cry for help. He was trying to get their attention. It doesn't make what he did any less. But it does bring up a great point about his measures that he was taking to show people around him of what he was going to be doing. Do you think the school failed to take the appropriate measures when all of this went down that morning? Because when the parents left, they could have chosen, or when they found out that the parents were leaving, they could have chosen to say, you know what, we need you to take Ethan home for the day. And they didn't. Now, their meeting was only like 10 minutes long, which, again, I have questions about that. It does make them look bad. They get all the way down there to the school. They go all the way down there to the school, and they only want to have a 10-minute discussion with the school. You kind of wonder, if your child does something like this and you want to sit with them and you want to find more information out, you're going to ask questions of the administrator, which is going to make the meeting run longer. This is just my personal opinion, okay? I'm allowed to have one. He still has to be crossed by the defense. And I wonder if the prosecution has many questions that they're going to ask, but they're saving them for the recross. Make sense?